What is going on, guys? Welcome back to More Games, and today we are once again back in Planet Coaster with Talon's Creek. But before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that I do actually have a second upload coming today around 12 o'clock that I think you guys should really check out and would really enjoy. It's actually called Bendy and the Ink Machine, and it's kind of like a little horror indie game that people have been working on. And it's actually based around the Disney franchise, and if Disney was like a bad sort of company. It's really confusing to explain, but you guys will absolutely love it. That's coming out around 12 o'clock, so make sure you check back around that sort of time and check out that video. I think you guys are going to really enjoy watching that video. So, having said that, let's get straight into today's video. So as you guys can see, we are of course working again on the mine train. Now it's been about 4 or 5 days since I last uploaded my last episode of this, and I haven't actually been working on this very much over the last few days. I've been really kind of busy with other videos and projects to get uploaded to the channel, and this is a little bit of footage in today's video from my last live stream that I did where I was actually building this coaster. By the way, if you haven't checked out the live stream yet, I do dual stream here on YouTube and on Twitch. The link to my Twitch channel is in the description, but if you're subscribed here, if you put notifications on, you'll know when I go live anyway. And we do a lot of live building on Planet Coaster on the live stream, so hopefully you guys will enjoy that as well. If you've never come check it out, come and say hi. That'd be really awesome to see you guys in the stream. So in this video in particular, we do work a lot on the triggers for this section of the ride. Now, we are working a lot on the back side of this ride where there is this huge helix area. Now, this all will eventually in today's video be closed off, so it'll be like kind of pitch black in there. So today we're kind of just working on getting the triggers, so when you're whizzing past on the track, the lights are flickering and everything's going off in the correct order and at the correct times, which it's actually a lot more work than I anticipated and expected originally when planning to build this coaster. Of course, before this coaster I'd only used triggers a few times on my coasters. I've never kind of based a whole ride around triggers, and it's actually quite a nightmare to get spot on, especially with this ride, as I would say 90% of this ride is going to be underground. You have to make sure that all of your triggers are correct and in the right place, and timings before you fill it in, before I put the roof on, because once the roof's on it's going to be pitch black in there, and then to try and tweak and fix the timings is going to be an absolute nightmare. So I do have to make sure that I get all the timings correct and spot on before I put the roof on. So that takes a lot of time, so you may see a lot of little bits of footage today in this video of me kind of like riding the coaster, and actually at the end of the video there is kind of a 1-to-1 speed of the whole track, so you guys will get to see me ride the coaster in its current form after the end of the video. So I'm not going to make you guys wait until the POV. I will actually show you this section of the track in today's video, so if you stick around to the end you'll get to see that, and hopefully you guys will enjoy what I've done in this video so far. So the great thing about streaming this build in particular is I get a lot of ideas from you guys that are subscribed to the channel. Whether you have Planet Coaster or not, you guys seem to come up with the best ideas and the craziest ideas that I never would have thought to implement into the ride. So I've got some crazy ideas for the triggers, and I want to be working on some sounds to be added to the game as well, because of course there is speakers in the game which you can place around the track and have different in-game sounds blasting through the ride as you're on the ride itself. So I can have like a train horn for when we come up towards the train, and we can have creaking wood, kind of like signaling when there's a piece of track that's going to be breaking, or falling rocks, or even splashing sounds when we whiz past some water. So there's tons of stuff even once the ride is complete that I'm going to be going in and adding to this ride. So it's not just about building the ride and getting the triggers in, it's actually about the sound as well, because the in-game sounds are great, but I just think that adding extra little sounds and sound clips to this ride is just going to make it really unique and kind of a one-off that it's going to take a lot of hard work to replicate or copy which is fine if someone wants to take ideas. I'm not saying that's bad, but just having like my own sounds that I've found or made myself to add to this coaster, I think it's just gonna, you know, level it up a little bit, make it on a different level to what it would have been if I didn't do that. So a lot of work over the next couple of weeks to find the correct sounds to be added to the ride, and that's probably going to be something that I add later on towards the end of the build. Once the main ride is complete itself, then that's when we'll go in and add those sounds. So there is actually one section of this ride towards the end before you go up the second lift hill that's kind of like it weaves in and out before it comes out of the second helix, and then it weaves in and out, which is quite a long section of track, probably about 5 to 10 seconds worth of train time or ride time in that little section. And I actually want to try and add like a ghost train to this section. I've not really tried this before, but I'm going to try it in this one. I'm not sure whether it's going to work, and it's something you guys will probably see me test and add in the next couple of episodes. But I'm going to try and set up a second coaster that runs at a specific timing, so I'm going to have to make sure that the train is the correct length. The train track on the second coaster is the same length, or the correct length, to actually time it up perfectly with this section of track. So it's going to be a nightmare to do this, but if it works, it's going to be really good, because as you whiz past this section of track, you're going to see another train running next to you, and it's going to have no one on it, so it's going to be like a ghost train, and of course you're going to be able to hear it. There's going to be sound effects and everything. So if I can get it to work how I want it to, hopefully it's going to work out really good, and it's going to add like another layer to this coaster. Whether I'm going to be able to pull this off or not, I'm not really too sure. Probably going to have to dig another hole to hide this coaster in, but basically I gotta have the track timing exactly perfect. So as you go through there, this one's up next to you, maybe a little bit further forward so everyone can see it. So it's kind of like racing along the side of the track next to you as you're going through this section of track. And then of course, once you go up the second lift hill, it'll probably pull away, go back to its station, and then do like a huge lap. So it lines up once again perfectly with the next train. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to say the least. Of course, I think it's gonna work well if we just have one train running at a time. If we have dual trains or triple trains, I'm not really sure how that's gonna work with the timings to have one train on the second track. Maybe if I have 2 trains on each track, then they'll line up perfectly twice. I'm not really too sure. I'll have to test, like loads and loads of testing with these kind of ideas, but that's just an idea. That's something that I want to test out and see if it's possible to do. I could have set up the track design where it loops around itself, so the track is actually like doubled up. Whether that would have worked, I'm not really too sure. So as you guys can see in the last couple of minutes, we have actually now added the roof structure to this little section of the ride. Now this section of the ride is of course a helix, and the train does obviously go around in a double circled loop before exiting this area. So this is a very open area of the ride. It's actually going to be the most open section other than the beginning of the ride itself. So the little section before the first lift hill is of course outside, so it's very open, but this section is probably the most open the ride is actually going to be. So getting the triggers in there, getting the lights working, make sure everything's lit up correctly so you can see what you're supposed to see, not see what you're not supposed to see, and get all of that stuff sort of correct was a nightmare. I'm not gonna lie, it was a nightmare, and I'm still working on it to this day because it's not yet 100%. I think once the sounds are in, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it will kind of pull this whole section together a little bit more. But it is a nice little section of the ride. I do like it. You can see quite a lot while going through here, which was kind of the idea, kind of the plan. We may actually poke a hole through the top section of the roof, a little hole to let natural light through. I'm not really too sure how much light would actually come through that hole if I did that, but it was a suggestion on the stream, and a few people did like that idea. Maybe we would have like a well up above, like make a well out of some rocks or some stones or something, to make it look like people could like throw some rocks down. and land in the water down below or something like that. I just think that's kind of quite a nice idea. It would let a little bit more light in, natural light, which is great, to light this area up a little bit more as well. And of course there would be that section above ground where people could kind of interact a little bit with the ride. Like I said, I'm not really too sure how that would work in the park's design, but it's a good idea, and it's something I'll probably explore later on once the rest of the ride is complete. But as you can see, this area now is pretty much complete at this point. There's not really too much more I want to get done. We got a few little explosions in here, we got some fallen rocks. I was going to put a waterfall in here. Unfortunately, when it's dark, the water effects that are provided in game actually are pretty much invisible. I don't really know why. I guess it's just the way the game's made, but water is kind of black or like pretty much impossible to see in the dark. So that was kind of an idea that I had, to add a little waterfall in here that won't actually be going into this ride, just for the reason you can't see it. You could probably hear it, which would be good, but you can't see it, so not really too much point of actually adding a waterfall. So the last little section of track that we're going to be getting done in today's episode is actually outside, up top, towards the entrance of the ride. So we are going to be coming back to this section in next week's episode, because next week's episode, or the next episode, sorry, we're going to be working on the actual station of the ride, and then after that we will be going back down into the hole to try and complete another section of the ride. So as you can see, we have this little section of the track here that's kind of lifted up in the air. So I did want to have some supports back there with some rockage, or some rocks. I don't really know if rockage is a word, but there we go. We put some rockage in here to kind of support this. Now we will go back into this section at a later date to add some wooden beam structures to actually prop up the tracks there itself. But I wanted to just get this little section of rocks in here to kind of see where this was going to go in terms of merging this little section to the rest of the park. We haven't really used any of these darker red color rocks anywhere else in the park as of yet, so trying to get this to blend in with the rest of the park is going to be a little bit of a problem, but it's something that we are going to work towards, kind of blending it into other sections as well to kind of make everything fit together. But as you can see, this little U-shaped section of rocks here is coming along quite nicely. And in a minute we do move on to working on where this second lift hill is. Now the second lift hill, as you can see, does pop out of the ground here. So that is something that we're going to have to try and cover up, or at least make look a little bit more decent. So I didn't really have a plan for working on the second lift hill, how I was going to do it. So I kind of decided to make a kind of little mini mountain. We are going to be having a mountain section around where the first lift hill is, just before you drop into the underground. So this will kind of like connect up to that. So that was the whole idea with this little section here, to try to cover the main section of this lift hill up just a little bit with this mountain. It's not going to be completely covered. We are going to leave the top section a little bit exposed, so when you're walking through this area you will see the train fly over the top of this little mountain section, and then of course it will rush out around this little U-shaped section and then back into the station. Now the station itself probably going to be a lot of wood, so very westerny, like the rest of the buildings in the park so far, to try and, you know, combine everything together quite nicely. We have a lot of wood in this ride already, but we are going to be getting a lot more in that station. So a lot of work to get done in the next episode of this series, but we are coming towards the end of the video now. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. We got a lot of stuff done in today's episode. If you stick around just a little bit longer, we are going to be showing off the track design. We are going to be taking a little ride on this coaster as it is after today's episode. And in the next episode we will continue, and we'll do another little POV at the end of next episode as well. So we're going to go straight in now to a little track video, but before we do that, if you enjoy this video, make sure you smash a like on it. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and of course I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.